This is Steve Wojcik. Before we roll these clips, let me say something plainly. What you're about to hear ties together three things we've talked about before: Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, Nick Fuentes, and the larger propaganda machine that has been feeding Americans a steady diet of outrage, half truths, and outright fiction. And here's the part that's exhausting. Most of this information has been sitting in plain sight for years, documented, reported, verifiable, but instead of checking facts, too many people chose memes, influencers, and viral nonsense over actual evidence. That's how propaganda works. It doesn't convince you with proof, it overwhelms you with repetition. At some point, though, adults have to do adult things. That means checking sources, demanding evidence, and having the humility to say, "Man, I got that wrong. I was misled." There's no shame in being duped. The shame is refusing to admit it when the facts are staring you in the damn face. So listen closely, because truth still matters and evidence still beats propaganda every single time. Now, here's the clips. When you've stood at enough death scenes, you learn something simple but sobering. Tragedy rarely ends at the grave. What happens next, how people interpret that death, can ripple further than the life ever did. I've been hearing folks draw a line between the killing of Charlie Kirk and moments from Nazi Germany. Names like Horst Wessel come up, a man most of us would never remember if not for what came after his death in 1930. He was just another street fighter, another casualty in a violent time. But Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, turned Wessel into a martyr, a symbol that helped fuel a movement. His funeral was staged like a spectacle. His name became an anthem. His death was worth more to the party than his life ever had been. Others point to the Reichstag fire of 1933, one match that burned more than a building. The Nazis seized on that crisis to suspend rights, round up opponents, and tighten their grip. The act itself mattered less than the story they told about it. And now, in the aftermath of Kirk's killing, I hear the same concern. Will this death be turned into something larger than the truth? Will it be used as a weapon? Here's the reality. America in 2025 is not Germany in the 1930s. We've still got competing voices, constitutional guardrails, and the ability to challenge the narratives we're fed. But history shows us that symbols are powerful. And when tragedy strikes, those symbols can be twisted into something dangerous. That's why I keep coming back to the same old lesson I carried as coroner. Families, communities, even nations deserve truth over myth, evidence over rumor, facts over the easy story. Because history doesn't repeat word for word, it rhymes. And it's on us to decide whether that rhyme becomes another verse of tragedy or a chance to write a better ending. Y'all be kind to each other, okay? You know, every so often a name comes up in the headlines that makes you stop and ask, who really is this person? What's the story behind all the noise? Today we're looking at Nick Fuentes. Fuentes was born in 1998, a kid from Illinois who found his way into politics early. By the time he was a teenager, he was live streaming his views, hard right nationalist Christian fundamentalist. In 2017, he showed up in Charlottesville at the Unite the Right rally. After that, he left Boston University claiming threats and pressure, but truth is, that moment lit the fuse that would define his career. Fuentes built a movement called the Groypers, young followers who try to infiltrate mainstream conservative spaces and shove the conversation further right. Their style? Disruption. In 2019, they launched what came to be called the Groyper Wars, turning up at Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk events, asking loaded questions about race, immigration, and Israel. Their goal was to embarrass mainstream conservatives into revealing their differences. Out of that came AFPAC, Fuentes America First Political Action Conference, a shadow version of CPAC. In 2021, Congressman Paul Gosar spoke there. In 2022, so did Marjorie Taylor Greene. That raised eyebrows inside the Republican Party, but it proved Fuentes could get sitting members of Congress on his stage. Now, what are the beliefs driving this? Fuentes openly pushes white identity politics. He rails against immigration, against LGBTQ rights, against feminism. He routinely uses anti-Semitic conspiracies, even questioning the Holocaust. Watchdog groups like the ADL and SPLC have called him a white nationalist, plain and simple. The law has circled him too. On January 6, 2021, he was outside the Capitol, not inside, but still subpoenaed by the House committee. In 2020, investigators traced a large Bitcoin donation from a French extremist into his accounts. In 2024, he was charged with misdemeanor battery in Illinois after a pepper spray incident. The same year, an armed homicide suspect showed up at his house, ending in a police standoff. And still, he keeps finding ways to broadcast. Banned from YouTube and Twitch, he built his own streaming site, Cozy TV. He bounced on and off Twitter under Elon Musk, each time sparking headlines. His followers keep migrating with him. So why does he matter? Because Fuentes represents a pipeline. Young people pulled from online anger into organized politics, all under a banner that says America First, but carries the weight of old hatreds. His reach may not match mainstream politicians, but his presence inside conservative circles, whether a dinner with Donald Trump and Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago or elected officials at his conference, that shows how far those edges can bleed into the center. And remember, y'all be kind to each other, okay? Propaganda. It sounds like something foreign, something distant, like it only belongs to dictators or far-off wars. But propaganda has always been closer than we care to admit. At its core, it's the art of bending truth until it feels real, and history shows us just how dangerous that can be. The word itself goes back to Rome in 1622. The Catholic Church set up an office called the Congregatio de Propaganda Fide, the Congregation for Propagating the Faith. Back then it wasn't sinister, it was just meant to spread. But by the time the Great War came along, propaganda had teeth. Governments weren't asking, they were stirring, shaming, scaring. Uncle Sam pointing his finger, I want you. The British urging men to enlist or face dishonor. Those posters weren't conversations. They were emotional punches, and they worked. By World War II, propaganda had become a science. Joseph Goebbels knew the formula. Keep it simple, repeat it until it feels like truth. Always give people an enemy to hate. And he fed those lies day after day until hate became duty. The end result? War, genocide, a world on fire. That's what happens when truth is bargained away. But here's the thing, propaganda isn't just a German story. I saw it here in Arkansas. Back in the 90s, when the cameras turned on Little Rock, the story was written to sell fear. Whole neighborhoods painted as battlefields. Every newscast hammering gang war and drug violence. I might have been part of that. I was caught up in it too. But then I stood in those living rooms, zipped up those body bags, listened to the mothers cry. That's what changed me. The violence was real, but the way it was told shaped how an entire city saw itself. That was propaganda too. And it wasn't only the media. Families themselves were swept up in it. I would hear over and over, they say it was the drugs. They say he was in a gang. Who was they? Nobody. Just a rumor repeated until it felt like gospel. And that gossip carried its own kind of weight, heavy enough to crush a grieving family. The danger of propaganda is not that it hides the truth. It's that it replaces it. It gives us a story we want to hear, a story wrapped in fear or pride or blame. It makes us react instead of reflect. It divides neighbor from neighbor, and it tempts us to trade honesty for belonging. But here's the line I will not cross, and I hope you don't either. Truth is not negotiable. Once we start bargaining with it, once we let feelings outweigh facts, we're already on the slope downward. The tools have changed from posters to radio, from television to memes, but the trick hasn't. A lie told simply and repeated often enough will always find believers. That's why we have to be on guard, because propaganda doesn't just live in history books. It lives in our headlines, in our conversations, in the stories we whisper about each other. And when it takes root, it corrodes trust, it hardens hearts, and it gives us permission to be cruel. So remember this, propaganda is powerful because it plays on our emotions. But truth, the real truth, is not negotiable. Lose sight of that, and we don't just lose arguments, we lose ourselves. Y'all be kind to each other, okay?